Hello, everybody. My name is Tucker Flottman, and I will be doing my second case study for SPCE 638. For this case study, I'm going to be reviewing Josh. I gave a bit of a rundown of him in the first case study. Josh is not his real name, obviously. He is a 7-year-old boy. He lives in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, and he is entirely non-vocal, but he uses an AAC device at a very high level. He communicates very well. He has very high manding and tacting scores on his VB-MAP and ABLES assessments, which we covered last time. Josh has an autism diagnosis. He was diagnosed 4 years ago and has been receiving ABA services for the last 2 years. I've been part of his treatment team for the entire time he's been receiving services, so I know this kid very, very well. He is currently, his parents are currently pursuing an OCD diagnosis for him. Josh has been assessed for ADHD. He was not formally diagnosed with ADHD, but that's another factor that should be considered when looking at him. So the main 3 behavioral concerns that we have with him are aggression, screaming, and self-biting. During the first case study, I completed a questions about behavioral functions assessment, also called QABF, and during that assessment, I broke down several of the potential functions for these 3 behaviors, and the results of that assessment determined that the most likely function for his aggression was escape. The most likely function for screaming was access and escape duly maintained. And for self-biting, it was escape and access were the 2 main ones. So for all 3 of these behaviors, we have a goal of reduction. For aggression, we're trying to reduce from approximately 8 per 4-hour session to 0. For his screaming, he is currently displaying a rate of about 20 per hour in the clinic, and we're wanting to see that reduced by about 80%. For his self-biting behavior, he typically bites himself like right here on his arm, and we are wanting to decrease that from about 14 per 4-hour session, which is about 3.5 times per hour, to 0 instances per session. Excuse me. So the way we are operationally defining Josh's aggression is that is any instance where he strikes another person's body using part of his body, using enough force to leave a visible mark. And for the sake of clarity, we are not including contextually appropriate contact, so no high fives, no fist bumps. I apologize. I'm getting over a cold, and playing tag is not considered that either. Screaming, any instances where Josh vocalizes at a volume that can be heard from an adjoining room. So for that one, we are not including crying or laughing. Then his self-biting behavior, that is being defined as any instance where Josh contacts his arm using his teeth with enough force to leave a visible mark. And I put as a non-example here, do not include instances where he does not leave a mark. Josh will occasionally press his arm up against his mouth as kind of just like a way to gauge whether he's going to get the escape he's looking for that way. So if he doesn't actually bite, we are not counting it as a bite. So functional communication training is a very common method of replacement behavior for behavior reduction in ABA. This is one that pretty much every ABA practitioner uses to try to reduce problem behavior at some point. The objective here is that we are providing the learner with a way to advocate for themselves functionally. Most problem behaviors pop up as a way for the learner to demonstrate that they either want something or don't want something. It's a way for them to communicate. Because Josh is so proficient using his AAC device, we are really trying to encourage him to use that device to mand for what he wants, whether that be a break from a task or whether that be an item he's hoping to gain access for. He should be using his device to communicate when he needs something. Our goal is that we are going to implement a functional communication training program for Josh and see a reduction in his screaming. Like I said, we are trying to reduce that by 80%. So our target goal is see a decrease from his current baseline of about 20 times per hour to about 4 times per hour. Obviously, overall goal is that we're not seeing it at all. But right now, our goal is a more realistic 80% reduction. So the way we're doing that is we're going to place his screaming on extinction. We are not reinforcing any screaming behavior. And the only way he is gaining the reinforcement, either his escape from a task or access to his preferred item, is to mand for it appropriately using his AAC device. So initially, like I said, the baseline was about 20 times per hour. For the first 2 sessions, we saw the expected extinction burst. In ABA terms, that essentially just means that when a behavior is placed on extinction, it's going to get worse before it gets better. Josh is used to the screaming getting him what he wants. And for those first 2 sessions, because it wasn't, that actually increased the screaming rather than decreasing it. But after those first 2 sessions, we saw a pretty sizable drop, pretty much right away. For the entire next week of sessions, his screaming had decreased from about 20 per hour baseline to about 11 times per hour on average. Yesterday, I actually did a session with Josh. It lasted 4 hours long. He had, across those 4 hours, he had 8 instances of screaming, which is a rate of about 2 per hour. That is a 90% reduction, which is significantly beyond what we had even hoped for. And that was after only about 2 weeks of implementing this procedure. So obviously this is a very significant decrease. Obviously that is just 1 session's worth of data that I'm reflecting here. So we're going to need to continue taking data for a while longer to see if that pattern holds. But we are very happy with the progress that Josh is making. Here is a reference to the Boyle article that I referenced earlier. And thank you for taking the time and watching this presentation. Thank you.